Alright, today we're going into a new assignment in computer art, and what I like to call this assignment is the Many-Me portrait. And so you're going to need to partner up with someone and have them take 5 different pictures of you doing 5 different poses, and then we're going to turn them into silhouettes in Photoshop and add this little kind of a three-dimensional shadow effect to them as well. So I've already got this project started, well on its way. I've got all 5 of my pictures in this one document by importing them. So once you have them taken and either save them in your Google Drive or you've emailed them to yourself and downloaded them, then you want to actually go to File and Place Embedded. That's what we want to do, and place each of these pictures all into one document. That one document, we want to make sure our image size is 10 by 8 and resolution of 150 or 300. Okay, maybe a little higher if you have a camera that's taking big pictures. You may want to adjust the resolution later, but start with 150, and if you want to go up, depending on how sharp your pictures are. I took my pictures from an iPad, so these pictures are pretty grainy, but they'll work for giving me a place to trace. So essentially, I'll go ahead and get started on this. You'll see I've already traced out these photos, deleted their backgrounds. I'll go through one last one just kind of as an example. I'm working on this picture that's on layer 3, so you see I haven't done anything to it. I might have cropped a little bit of it, but essentially all I want to do is go ahead in here and I can use my poly lasso tool to kind of go around the edges, going really close to the edges of my face. Other tools that might be able to use here are your magic wand tool. Oops, it looks like that. I made a connection there, so what I can actually take a second to show is the add to selection option. If that happens, you want to keep adding to your selection as long as I kind of click inside of where I left off and then keep clicking. I can continue to add to that selection. Now I can't really see where that finger went. These pictures are overlapping a little bit. That's okay. I'm just going around here and trying to get as close as possible as I can to the edges. Alright, so a little easier when I'm going through kind of the legs and torso, obviously. Less angles to go through. The most challenging part is definitely doing the hands. Okay, so again, just kind of going along as close as I can. Now, like I said, I could use other tools like my selection brush or you know, my other lasso tool. You may be able to use your magic wand. Sometimes it's a little tricky to use your magic wand. But I think it's okay to kind of make the fingers at the ends a little bit pointed. We'll see how this goes. And we are almost around to start, and so once I finally get inside of this line again and then go back to my starting point here, see that little circle, and now I've added to my selection. Okay, so what I can do now is I can select the inverse of that selection. So now it's selecting everything outside of this image, and if I press delete, the image itself is what I'm left with. So now what we want to do is turn these into silhouettes, and the way we're going to do that is I'll go ahead and create a new layer right over the top of this layer that I just edited. Now if I go ahead and take my move tool and I hold the command key and click on this, actually click on this, on this layer. Oops. There we go. So holding the command key and clicking right on this layer's thumbnail picture right here, it will automatically select an outline of this image, of what's on this layer. So now if I just click up to this new layer here, you could call this you know, number 1, or you know, whatever you want to keep track of which number of body you are on. I'll make a choice for a color to kind of fill this with. And now I will go ahead and click and fill in that area. So what I've got now is a light blue silhouette, and this is right over the top of this other layer. So these are two different things, and what I could really do at the end is I could really delete these main photo images. Okay, so once you go around and trim and add all these as silhouettes, all right, I can go through and you can kind of see that I have already really done the majority of this project here. So I'm just going ahead and turning on all my layers and turning off my photos because I had already had these done. So actually I'll go ahead and I'll use the new one that I had instead of the purple one there. And so I'll take this one, kind of add it to the mix. Actually what I'm going to do is move this green one over to the side, and kind of there we go. So that works. And think about how you're placing your images and how they kind of relate to one another, and try and come up with an arrangement that's a little different or interesting. So, and making them kind of interact with one another. So now let's go over how to do the shadow portion. Okay, so making sure now that all my picture layers are all turned off, so all we're looking at is just the silhouettes all finished. What I'm going to do is create a copy of this layer right here. So I'm going to go to layer at the top and then duplicate that layer. Okay, and layer 1 copy is fine. We can call it shadow, or shadow 1 is a good thing to do too. Now what we can do is we'll take this shadow and we can either just rotate it, like spin it, or we could also go to edit, our edit menu, and down to transform, and just flip that layer vertically. And so now you'll see we have one guy upside down, one guy right side up. Okay, so now what I'll do is go ahead and squish this layer down to create kind of a squished shadow, which would be right underneath the feet here. The other thing that I want to do is change the color. So I'll press enter on my keyboard to kind of complete that transformation. Just kind of moving him into the right spot, making sure that the feet should pretty much touch. I have this kind of doing snapping right now, so I'm going to see if I can find where that is really quick. If I go to my edit bar, change my snaps. Okay, so I'm not gonna try and fuss with that right now. Want to try and see it's trying to snap to the objects there, so it's not really letting me get the shadow to connect to the feet quite like I want to. But okay, so what I need to do also is fill this a different color. So I'm going to also fill it kind of like a dark gray, sort of a shadow color, and that would work there. Really the last thing that we want to do is we could add a gradient that kind of goes over our shadows. So I'm going to go ahead and turn on my other shadow layers that I've got created so you can see what this will really want to look like said and done. Okay, now I think that this shadow is actually to this subject here, and I want to make sure that all my shadows are pretty much the same shade of gray. So I'm actually going to go ahead and take my eyedropper tool here, and going to click on this gray, and then take my fill bucket and, oops, not fill the entire space, but I'll have to find that shadow 1 layer and then click in that shadow. So now they all have the same shadow tone. Alright, zoom out a little bit so we can really see what's going on here. Alright, so now what we want to do is just add a gradient in this top layer. Now I've already kind of got this going, so I'll add a new layer at the very top of my project, And the last thing I'm going to do is add a gradient that goes over the entire thing. Okay, so gradient tool right here. I'm going to go ahead and make a new gradient. Actually, it looks like it's already in the presets. So we got foreground to transparent. Okay, now we want to change this foreground color to white. Alright, so we want it to be white to transparent. Anytime you see these kind of blocks, you know that that is see-through, or that is clear, basically, to a white color. Alright, and now what if I do, let's see which way this is going to go. Okay, so it was backwards, so I need to actually start from the bottom and do a gradient upwards. Although I have the radial gradient selected, I want to make sure we have this linear gradient selected. And I'm just going to do, see that little bit actually, just that little bit of a fade that kind of goes over the top of the shadows there. That kind of creates an effect like more realistic kind of three-dimensional kind of space going on here. Again, so I started right off the edge there and just came about maybe halfway up my shadows, so that those kind of fade out, right? Because the shadow should be pretty strong underneath the subject and then kind of fade lighter as it gets further away. So that looks pretty good there, I think. Yeah, I kind of liked it that way. All right, so that's pretty much all there is to it. You know I skipped over a few steps, but basically I think you have all the tools needed to accomplish this project. So wish you lots of luck and have some fun.